From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Yes, that's right. It's Scary Monsters, Super Creeps. For Radio Andy on Sirius XM, it's a special episode of the Wow Report in honor of Halloween. Normally, we count down the top 10 things that make us go, wow. But this week, we're doing the top 10 films that made us go, boo! Or, ah! Scared you? Yes, I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder. And joining me, one of the twisted minds behind RuPaul's Drag Race, Tom Campbell.
Hello, Fenton. How are you, Tommy?
Very good, thank you. Woo! And someone for whom every day is Halloween, best-selling author and spooky movie addict, James St. James.
Darling!
Hello! Oh, and Blake, you're here too.
Hi.
Hi. So let's get started with the terror. Let's start at number 10. Tom, what have we got?
Number 10.
I just want to do a little caveat because when we talked about counting down the top 10 scary movies of all time, it dawned on me, I don't like scary movies. I mean, I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to the blood and the gore and the saws of it all, but I do love a suspense yarn. I love the intrigue of that. So at number 10, I want to offer to you and to the world Rosemary's Baby.
A classic.
Wonderful, wonderful classic, yes.
It is a classic, and this gave me a chance to re-watch it, which I probably saw it in the 70s for the first time, and maybe the last time when it was ABC's Sunday Movie of the Week.
Well, we're going to talk about those later.
Oh, yes. But, and, it's not a terror fest, but it is a beautiful piece of filmmaking. It's Roman Polanski.
A creeping sense of horror that pervades the whole movie.
It's Mia Farrow starring as a young bride who becomes pregnant with, spoiler alert, Satan's son, and John Cassavetes plays her husband, and of course Ruth Gordon, who's the neighbor, this crazy kind of New York lady, is a Satan worshiper.
And this is the beginning of her '60s comeback, isn't it? This is the first time she'd worked in like 30 years.
Yes, and she got nominated. I don't know if she won an Oscar.
And this is what brought her to Harold and Maude and Every Which Way You Can and all of those.
And it's really what made Roman Polanski a household name in America. It's based on a book, which I didn't know. I do a little Googling during the slow movies. He's based on a book.
Tell me, though, but does it hold up? Because I haven't seen it in 20 years either. Does it hold up in comparison to today's horror films?
It doesn't hold up in the same way, but it is a great piece of filmmaking. It's set at the Dakota. In New York.
Which is where John Lennon lived.
Is where John Lennon lived and died, unfortunately. And although I guess the interiors were done someplace else. But it's the 60s. It's New York. There's scenes in traffic to see the cars. And, of course, the star of the movie
is Mia Farrow's hairdo.
Mia Farrow's hair. In the opening credits, it gives credit to Vidal Sassoon for doing her hair.
God.
And remember, this is also, I was reading up, this is when Mia was married to Frank Sinatra. She was she was a big star on Peyton Place on TV.
Yes,
before my time.
soap opera, yeah.
But this is her first big feature film, and boy, what a career she's had. She had, in the earlier scene, she has regular kind of girly hair.
Is it a wig or is it really her hair?
It's a wig, but it's a good wig.
Uh-huh.
But then when she gets inseminated by the devil, spoiler alert,
she's sick all the time.
How does she get inseminated?
Well, the whole idea is that
Do you not see
they
that?
get this really amazing apartment in the Dakota, and it's really low budget, and they can fit in. He's an actor, John Cassavetes, who plays her husband, but kind of down on his luck, doing okay, but kind of down on his luck.
So you move into the Dakota.
And move into the Dakota, and the neighbors...
Creepy neighbors.
Is Ruth Gordon and maybe Ralph Bellamy, or I can't remember.
But in the beginning, we think that they're just lovely neighbors, and they're really just this lovely old couple.
Eccentric old couple.
Who take an exceptional interest in her pregnancy.
Yes.
The sweet elderly couple next door, and they take all this interest in her life.
And then her husband, who's an doing commercials actor, befriends them, and they start giving... And then the person who he was up for a part and he lost to suddenly goes blind. His career starts to take off because he's made a deal with the devil. But we don't know this for a fact. It's one of those things where it's like, might it all be in her mind? Is she
going crazy?
Is she going crazy?
She's getting cramps during the pregnancy.
Yes.
She's not feeling well, and they keep saying, drink this to herbal tea to make you feel better. And she keeps getting sicker and sicker, and the dark circles under her eyes, and that's when she cuts her hair, right?
Yes, and the haircut, which I thought was going to make her look chic, which it does, also coincides with the fact when she's pregnant with the devil and starts to look very ill. But there's actually the scene is a dinner scene where they're going to make love and they're going to have a baby. baby, and we don't know this, but he's already made the deal with the devil. And so Ruth Gordon comes over with some chocolate mousse for them all to eat, and they eat the chocolate mousse. And
Why is Ruth Gordon sounding like Carol Channing?
And she doesn't. That's all I do. That and Cher. She throws away the chocolate mousse because she doesn't like it, and her husband was kind of goading her into eating it. So she kind of hides some of it. So she ends up being. It's supposed to knock her out, and it does. But she's still conscious enough for the satanic ritual where people surround all of the old people in the building
the
are surrounding
are all
her,
coming in.
and Satan with like horns and hooves and scratches goes and impregnates her. And I remember as a kid being horrified by the scene. It's still pretty creepy.
I remember the shadow on the wall. Is that right? Am I seeing a shadow, or do you actually see Satan clove?
You see bits and pieces, and you see shadow.
But then, of course, the money shot is at the very end where she's approaching the bassinet,
Yes.
and she pulls open to reveal. But we never see the child of Satan.
But they say his eyes. He has his father's eyes.
Yes, the old people are all gathering
Yes.
and saying, "Go hug your babies, go hug your baby." And she pulls it open, and it's so terrifying.
We need a sequel.
Well,
There is a sequel?
They made a sequel on television, which I've never seen, starring Patty Duke
Rosemary's teenager
as Rosemary, because the movie ends with her thinking that the baby's dead. And they want to raise her on their own, and then she ends up figuring it out. She breaks into the apartment with all this crazy eccentric Satan worshippers, and the guy's like, "Come on, take care of your child, Rosemary. Take care of your child." So it ends with her kind of knowing that she's going to be raising the devil child. Rosemary's Baby. I've ruined it for you by recapping the whole entire thing, but it's worth seeing. Again, it's less of a gasher slasher and more of something that has a lot of suspense and really keeps you going.
James, what's your number 9 most terrifying, horrifying Halloween movie experience?
Number 9.
Well, we are going into a gasher slasher right here. We have Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Not Part 1.
Oh.
If you, this is
Why?
the lesser known of the franchise, and the reason why is it's a scary movie, and if you remember Part 1, if you remember the original Nightmare on Elm Street, it was a really scary movie. It was legitimately a sort of a terrifying, creepy, suspenseful thing, and it had the first Johnny Depp appearance, and we saw him in his underwear, and it was the first time we'd ever seen Johnny Depp before. Really fantastic. If you get a chance to go rent that, but Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 is possibly the gayest movie of all time. Okay,
Is that what makes it terrifying?
I have an internet article right here that backs me up, saying Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is the gayest horror movie ever made.
Explain.
Okay, now I sent you guys a video. I don't know if anyone saw it. It was
no.
Great guys. Things
I saw this email saying, "Oh, it just proves so and so's gay," and I was like, "Oh, there goes James."
I was trying to give you some a backstory so that we could all discuss it here.
You can educate us.
Okay, the main character in this one is a guy named Jesse Walsh, who's played by Mark Patton, who is an openly gay actor anyway at the time, right? And this is one of those cases where like subtext becomes context because there was supposed to be a little gay homoerotic subtext to it, but this movie just takes it and expands on that. There's in the plot of the movie is a little different from the other Nightmare on Elm Streets because in this one, Freddy doesn't come in and kill you in your dreams. He comes in and he possesses the body of Jesse. And so you have all these scenes where Jesse is running around telling his best friend Grady, who's this hot jock, he's trying to get inside of me, and like all these like really gay things that he keeps saying, and he keeps saying, you have to watch me sleep, Grady. And so like then he'll like have his shirt off and he'll be in his underwear and Grady has to watch him sleep. And then and there's just like all sorts of very strange things. At one point, he wakes up from his dream and he just wanders into a gay bar, a leather bar. You just see him like in a fugue in sort of a.
And the name of the bar? Tom's Bar.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you, Blake.
so he wanders into this leather bar, and he has this sadistic gym teacher, and the sadistic gym teacher is there in like a leather harness, and he says, "We're going back to the school, and you're going to do some laps because you aren't supposed to be here." right? Which is sort of like odd. And so they go back to the school in the middle of the night, and the gym teacher in his leather harness makes Jesse do all these like laps around the thing, and then go take a shower. And he's watching him in the shower, and all of a sudden, Freddie comes and takes the gym teacher, and the gym teacher's clothes come off, and he's tied up, and Freddie's like whipping him with a towel, and he whips him to death. And it's like really bizarre. There's other scenes
James,
where...
I'm sorry. I just want you to know I am so turned on right now.
No,
You will be. You will be. There's another scene. There's another scene where Jesse is supposed to go clean his room because he's been a bad boy, and so he's up in his room and he puts on this like high energy dance music, like that no like straight boy would even know in the 80s. It was like straight out of like Crisco Disco, and he starts doing this little dance around his room, and he's bumping his booty and everything, and he grabs this stick and he's sort of like using it like a phallus, like sort of spinning it around like in his groinal area, and his mother walks in on him, and he's like suddenly like really embarrassed, maybe because of the high energy dance music, I don't know, but it's sort of like this metaphor for your mother walking in on you when you masturbating. There's all sorts of just really bizarro moments. They play a game called Probe, like this board game.
Oh yeah,
that, like,
Probe.
that like doesn't exist, but it's like all through the movie there are just these weird gay, and then there's like a supercut that I sent you guys of him screaming like a girl, and he just keeps saying all these funny things, like he's trying to enter me. I feel him, like about Freddy Krueger.
I think I might have seen this film, but I thought it was called something else.
Well, I remember seeing it with my sister, and I wasn't quite out of the closet yet, and it made me deeply uncomfortable. Like I was like, because I was totally getting that it was a gay movie in 1983 or whenever it was that came out, and but I don't think anybody else did. And it wasn't until later that when the internet came around that everyone has sort of begun saying, "Look, this movie is obviously gay." There's also he has a girlfriend, and he can't. They're trying to have sex at one point, and his tongue becomes super enlarged, and he freaks out.
Engorged, I think, is the word you're looking for.
And he tries pushing it back inside of his mouth, and he says, "I can't do it, and he jumps up and runs away. And there's like you can't quite figure out like what the metaphor for that is, like what
giant inflatable tongue thing.
The like a big penis, but he can't get it inside of her or something. I don't know what it was, but it's just laden with these.
I am going to go straight home and watch this movie.
It's incredible.
Nightmare on Elm Street
2. It's fantastic, and I think everybody needs to see it. They need to teach it in colleges.
Well, that is a very tough act to follow. The Bad Seed, maybe, or something like that. My pick for number 8 actually is
Number 8.
Alien.
Oh.
Because it has a thematic connection here. Alien came out in 1979. I mean, I have to admit, many of my choices date back to when I was kind of young in my teenage. Because I guess, terror can make an impression on you. Mm-hmm. And Alien, I mean, it has a fascinating history, the way the movie evolved. But I suppose, some people have said, I was telling them I was going to talk about Alien, and they were like, oh, that's not frightening. But it is so terrifying in terms of this sort of slow building sense of dread. I mean, almost from the beginning when they wake up, the space people who are returning home on a mining mission from deep space, they've been in stasis, which is basically hypersleep. And there's this fabulous scene of them waking up in this empty spaceship. Even that is so creepy.
Well, I was just going to say, can I point out that the H.R. Geiger, who was the man who made the spaceship and designed the alien thing, which I'm sure you're going to get into in a minute.
But that was our trivia question for the commercial break. But yes. But carry on. We'll think of something else.
Well, I was going to say, just the whole visualization of this spaceship and the way that it's like deco, but it's futuristic, and it looks like the inside of a shell, but it's also sort of reptilian.
You say a shell, huh? I think it looks like, I mean, when they land on the okay, short story long, or long story short, they are returning home on a big mission of mining, and they get woken up because their spaceship has received an alarm signal. So there's this call for help from this planet. I mean, it's a classic horror thing. Just don't go there. Someone calls for help, don't go, right?
Don't go in the basement.
So they go down to the planet. And there they find they're in a sort of storm, very rough weather. What's that called? The pathetic fallacy. When it's thunder and lightning, and bad things are going to happen. That's called the pathetic fallacy. Did you know that? Yeah, you know. So anyway, they're down on the planet in a storm, and they approach this giant vulva. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's an enormous cunt, basically. And they walk, because the spaceship is this huge sort of organic thing, right? And then, of course, in the fullness of time, they come across an egg chamber, right? And then the egg opens up, right? And out of the egg, onto his face. I mean, it's the most terrifying moment. John Hurt gets his face hugger on his face. And here's...
You have a face hugger, don't you?
Yeah,
you have a stuffed one.
I have a plushy face hugger. Yes.
Carry on.
Feels a little... What did you try to say? But anyway, I mean, it goes on. Obviously, I mean, Alien is one of the... If you haven't seen the film, you must see it. It's one of the creepiest films. I suppose it's sort of biological terror because it's, this guy gets impregnated by this crab that flies out of the egg and inserts its tube and seed down his throat. And then, of course, out of his chest bursts the young alien. I mean...
Traumatized me to no end.
And do you know what traumatized the actors? Because they didn't know what was going to happen in that scene. They only did one take. And when the chest rips and the blood spurts out and it covers one of the actors...
The other actors
she
didn't
fell
know?
down. No, didn't know. And so it's all real. It feels very, very real.
My favorite thing from Alien was the promo marketing line. In space, no one can hear you scream.
That is classic.
It's a brilliant line. But the interesting thing is, in terms, James, of this sort of, he's trying to get inside me, one of the creators of Alien said, the whole idea was to attack the audience sexually. That was the terror they were perpetrating in this film.
It's the same movie.
Yes, but here's the thing. It was not the women, but the men. And he talks about how it was the face hugger is fear of homosexual oral rape. Yes. Because this thing hugs onto your face and then shoots his seed into your belly, and then out of your belly, but you become pregnant man. Out of your belly bursts this alien monster.
Because you don't have a womb.
Exactly. Right.
And Rosemary has the devil's baby. There's some theme here.
This is all of Satan is, and Freddy Krueger is entering in through your body. Is this the same movie?
Yes,
over all three times?
It is. It's diabolical pregnancy and sort of
men
mutant...
inside of you.
Yes. And the other interesting thing about Alien, I know I've got to wrap it up, is that it actually came out of the ashes. It's like it's a phoenix. It came out of the ashes of the attempt to make Dune a movie. All these people, Geiger, Fosse, all these people were working on this enormous epic production of Dune. And there is a fabulous documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune, all about the making of this film, which then fell apart. But so many of the people from Alien, set designers, costume designers, everyone, ended up going from Dune onto Alien. And of course, the rest is... Horror history, right? Yeah. Yes, so that's Alien, which early film of Ridley Scott's, who went on to direct a couple of years later the no less epic sci-fi Blade Runner. But he himself characterized Alien. He said it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre of sci-fi. And I think that's brilliantly put. So we have to take a quick commercial break. But first, how many movies are there in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise? You know that there's at least 2.
Start there.
Find out when we return. This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey, joined by Tom Campbell and James St. James and Blake. And we're coming to you from Hollywood Boulevard. This week and every week, we're counting down the top 10 things that make us go, wow. But this week, we're giving it a slight twist. And we're counting down the top 10 horror films of all time in honor of Halloween. So before the break, we asked how many movies are there in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise? Okay, how many?
Well, I'm going to say 6, but there's also the... Freddy meets Jason, so I don't know if that counts.
I'm going to go with lucky 13.
What? You think
13,
that many?
13.
Okay. What is it?
9.
Oh.
There's 9. Hey, follow up. Do you know how many movies there are in the Alien franchise?
4.
4?
7.
Oh!
And there's an 8th on the way.
Oh, Prometheus would be in that, right?
Prometheus would be an Alien versus Predator. And
just to clear that up, that did include Freddy versus Jason, and it also includes the remake in 2010.
Oh, being gone.
Thank you, Blake.
Okay.
All right, Tom, what have we got at number 7 in our countdown of horror movies?
Number 7.
Again, I tell you, I'm not into gasher slasher movies. I picked Rosemary's Baby from the 60s, and then I went back into the 50s to talk about, and I watched again, The Bad Seed.
One of the all-time greats.
The Bad Seed is directed by Mervyn LeRoy, and it stars a young Patty McCormick, who is this perfect little blonde, banged, braided girl in a little pinafore, and she is pure living evil.
Can I tell you just right off the bat that I used to do a Rhoda Penmark drag?
That's her name.
Yeah, and people used to call me Rhoda, little Rhoda, when I first started hitting the club scene in New York City, because I channeled this evil little girl.
I didn't know you back in the club day, but I can imagine you being that evil, because Rhoda was so charming, and she's sort of, and she the whole plot is that her father's in the military, so he has to leave at the beginning, and it's sort of like, Daddy, what would you give me for a basket of kisses? It's like
A basket of hugs.
yeah, it's like she's so like sickeningly nice.
I've got the prettiest mommy in the world.
Yes. And her mother played with this actress Nancy Kelly. And I guess this had been a play, so it's very theatrical, the movie. It's very overacted. And Nancy Kelly's always trying to take care of her daughter. But it's all about the penmanship medal.
Claude Daigle shouldn't have gotten that penmanship medal.
Oh my God, Rhoda's here. And
Rhoda, there's a penmanship contest at the school.
Yes.
And Claude Daigle wins, and Rhoda is furious.
she's going to get it. And so it ends up that they go on a school trip, a field trip. Claude dies. He drowned. And they find out that there were like little sort of crescent moon marks all over his head. And it seems that Rhoda, who loves to play the piano and tap dance, might have taken her tap shoes and bludgeoned him to death on the edge of the pier. And you kind of don't believe it. And then the maintenance man at the apartment building is onto her and is like taunting
crazy
her.
old, he's sort of a mentally challenged, crazy
Yes.
old man. And he's like, you're a bad girl, aren't you? You're a bad girl.
She tried to burn her shoes in the incinerator, and he says he got them. And she's like, give me back those shoes.
Give me back those shoes.
And he ends up catching on fire because Rhoda, the bad seed, set him on fire.
Well, this is that I never understood when I was watching it, because she said, I see you with your Excelsior, and you keep your Excelsior behind the furnace where you sleep in it, which I guess Excelsior is straw or something.
It's sort of like packing material.
Packing-
but it was
okay.
very...
So she burns him to death.
He's
sets
taking a
him-
nap in the basement. She sets him on fire.
Yes, and locks the cellar door so
Yeah,
he
sure.
can't get out.
Well, that's how you kill somebody, when you set them on fire. But and then the mother starts to figure it out, and there's this, also it has sort of a 50s psychological bent, because the mother finds out in the middle of this that she was adopted, and that she is the daughter of a serial killer. So somehow it skipped her and passed on to little Rhoda. And the ending, we're just spoiling these.
Wait. But before we do that, it has one of the great performances of all time from Eileen Eckhart, is her name?
Eileen Heckert, yes.
Eileen Heckert, a great stage actress. I think she was on Bewitched, too, for some reason.
Yes.
She comes in as the drunken mother.
Of Claude.
Of Claude Daigle's drunken mother, because she's so distraught over the losing her
Yes.
son that she's turned to the bottle.
And she's kind of low class. She's kind of blue collar.
Yes.
And Rhoda and her family are very upper class. But at the very end, it's kind of, I have to talk about it, because the mother ends up realizing that her daughter is pure evil, gives her vitamins that are, and the daughter confesses to everything, by the way.
But yes, I'm evil.
And she gives her the, no, Mommy, you're not going to have them send me away, are you, Mommy? I love my mommy so much, that kind of
The
thing.
prettiest mommy.
She ends up giving her a fistful of pills, says they're vitamins, they're sleeping pills. And then she goes down the hall, the door closes, and you hear, bang! Mom's killed herself. So they're supposed to both be dead. And then you flash to the hospital, and it's the next door neighbor going, well, if that gun hadn't gone off, we wouldn't have had time to save Rhoda. So Rhoda's alive. The mother doesn't kill herself. In the play, she's dead, and the child lives, but they had to make everything nice in the 50s. And Rhoda wakes up in the middle of the night with her mother with her head in a bandage, and she's out in the pouring rain, because she is
In her
going...
little yellow rain slicker.
Yes, walking, because she's going to get that penmanship medal at the end of the pier. And because it was the 50s, and it had to have like a moral ending because of the
Hays
movie
Code, yeah.
she's struck by lightning and dies. Like God takes care of Rhoda. But the best moment of all is the very end, because it's really upsetting. It's because it is sort of this 50s kind of family thing that turns really dark. And at the end of the movie, just like the play, they do a curtain call on film, where the whole cast comes out and bows in the
So
set.
we see that she really isn't evil
And
at
the
all.
last thing is that the mother takes Rhoda over her knee and she spanks her, and the whole cast laughs. The bad seed. Watch it and
My
be scared.
gosh. I'm just speechless, really. Well, okay, number 6, James.
Number 6.
I'm sticking with the bad right here
Okay.
because I have Bad Ronald.
Bad Ronald.
I'm surprised you don't remember this one, Tom. In the 1970s, ABC used to do their movie of the week, and very, very famously, it was really top quality stuff, and they had some really scary, scary movies. During that time, there was Trilogy of Terror with Karen Black. There was Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. There was Burnt Offerings with Bette Davis. There was The Initiation of Sarah. And these were all top quality made-for-TV movies, used with really good writers, really good actors, and they were all they traumatized an entire generation of kids.
Invented by Barry Diller and Michael Eisner, the movie of the week.
Exactly. Well, this is Bad Ronald, and Bad Ronald is the story of a bad boy named Ronald.
So far, I'm following you. Go on.
He's slightly touched, okay? He's got some problems. He's got this overprotective mother, and he's coming home from school one day. He's really cute, by the way. You just want to.
Yeah, it's okay.
We
Moving
said
on.
if you watched it, remembered it, he was cute.
Okay. So anyway, this girl is making fun of him, and he pushes her, and she falls and hits her head against a cinder block and dies. And he buries her in the bushes, and then he runs home and he tells his mother, "Mother, I've accidentally killed this girl." And she says, "Oh, my poor baby, they're going to come and get you. They're going to come and get you. We've got to hide you." And so she walls off a bathroom, okay, and puts him in the bathroom, and she says now there's a crawl space right there, and between the walls of the house there's like 1 or 2 feet that he can sort of move around the house behind the walls. And she says, "You're going to stay here until the heat is off and the police stop looking for you, and then you can come back out again. I'll tell everybody that we've sent you away to go stay with your father," or something like that. So he's behind the walls, and every night there's a little grating that he can scurry out of and get his food that she leaves out for him and then scurry back. Okay, and then there's a next door neighbor, and the next door neighbor comes over and says, "They're looking for your son. They're looking for your son." And so time goes on, and it's a week, then it's a month, it's 2 months. He's still behind the walls. And he starts poking little holes in the walls so he can see out what's happening, everything like that. Well, all of a sudden, the mother goes in for a gallbladder operation and dies on the operating table. Okay, so the mother is gone. All of a sudden, for whatever reason, he's afraid to leave the walls. He doesn't know what to do. So he's just spinning behind the walls and freaking out. And another family moves into the house without realizing.
Shouldn't the real estate agent reveal that, though?
You would think. But so this other family moves into the house, not realizing that Bad Ronald is living in the walls.
Creepy. That's
Okay.
super creepy.
I am this is the scariest thing so far.
Right, and he's hot to boot, right? So it's scary and he's hot.
Right.
Okay, but anyway, so
These walls could talk.
And all through for the rest of the movie, like, the father will come down and say, "What happened to that blueberry pie that was in the refrigerator?" And of course, Bad Ronald had eaten it during the night, and like he's got to sneak out and steal food. And you see Bad Ronald like peeking at the girls while they sleep, the teenage girls peeking on them while they're showering and everything. And I'm not going to tell you how it ends because it's very scary. But suffice it to say that like I said, an entire generation was traumatized by this.
Yeah.
And when I tell you that everybody at Chippewa Middle School was convinced that Bad Ronald was living in their walls, and every time you hear a thump or a tree branch against the window, you are convinced that Ronald is living in your house.
Absolutely creates that paranoia in me today. Just hearing you tell the story.
But I saw a viral video a couple of years ago, maybe, where someone, I guess, had seen this film and was actually secretly, covertly living in someone's apartment. And they were in a sort of luggage space, like a sort of a closet.
Yes, I've seen that.
I guess the person who lived there got suspicious that something was going on and left a video camera set up. And lo and behold, in the dead of night, in that really creepy sort of green night vision,
Found vision,
you see
found
this
camera.
golem-like creature emerge from the loft, climb down, and sort of eat things and move around, and then go back up and secrete themselves back into the absolutely creepy.
They were eating the food, I believe.
Bad Ronald for real, eating the blueberry pie.
Well, and then in the 90s, there was a movie called The People Under the Stairs that was kind of like this.
I remember that one because that to me, like walking downstairs that don't have the backs to them, I always imagine people are going to grab my ankles as I'm walking down. Anyway,
I'm really chilled to the bone. So my choice for number 5.
Number 5.
I'm sticking with the biological horror theme.
Okay.
Is a Videodrome.
Oh.
The 1983 classic from David Cronenberg. David Cronenberg, famous director for a lot of horror. Body horror actually really is his specialty. He did Rabid, Scanners, The Brood, Dead Ringers, Crash. But there's something about Videodrome that really, that really touched me. I mean, in a way, it was perhaps something of a bomb. And some people would argue with me that it's not really scary. But basically, James Woods is this guy who runs this sort of low-rent cable channel. And he's like, what's next? What's going to get viewers? And he thinks he discovers this satellite channel from far away, like in Asia, Malaysia, in fact, that's beaming out snuff S&M. There are people in a red clay room being whipped and stabbed and beaten. And he thinks that this is the next big hit. And so he starts broadcasting it. Well, not to ruin the story for you, but it turns out that it's not coming from Malaysia. It's actually coming from Philadelphia. And it's this tape that has been manufactured, this show manufactured with a signal encoded in the tape that basically gives you brain tumors and kills you. And in James Woods' case, he starts getting an itch in his chest. And the itch gets worse and worse and worse. And it turns into a vagina. What? He has a vagina, not just an ordinary vagina, but a vagina into which he can insert videotapes. That's why it's called Videodrome. It's a fantastic story.
It explains so much about you. I don't know what it explains, but I just feel like a psychiatrist could have a field day with this.
Is Deborah Harry in this?
Yes, Debbie Harry's in it as this sort of overstimulated S&M vixen with whom James Wood appears on a TV talk show, and enters into a libidinous affair with her. And she is so smitten, they watch Videodrome together while they're having nookie, and she's so smitten she goes off and disappears into the snuff TV studio and is never seen again. But she has a great line. She says that we live in overstimulated times. Actually, there's something quite prophetic about it, because at the center of this whole film is a character called Dr. Brian Oblivion, who operates a homeless shelter called the Cathode Ray Mission. And his solution for homelessness is to plug people back into the mixing board of life by making them binge watch trash TV.
What?
Yes, he says it's one thing is to be homeless, but if you give them lots of TV, it reconnects them with society. And then there's even, he says lovely portentous things like, the television screen is the retina of the mind's eye. Television is reality, and reality is less than television. So it's all quite good. It's actually, prophetic in a way, because this cathode ray mission looks like an internet cafe. Or in fact, it looks like any office where people are just like glued to their screens. And the twist is that Dr. Brian Oblivion, of course, has watched Videodrome, so he's died, and he just exists as a series of tapes. And his hot daughter says, my father has not engaged in conversation for at least 20 years. The monologue is his preferred mode of discourse.
What year was this?
1983. It's fantastic. It's really the beginning of cable.
Yeah.
Inspired very much by kind of Marshall McLuhan, and also this guy in Canada, because Cronenberg's Canadian, called Moses Naimer, who actually started the idea of the TV studio as a sidewalk experience, that you could walk by and see, the way that Good Morning, all the TV shows now are like on Times Square and very participatory. Moses Naimer was this sort of media guru who spoke in Dr. Brian Oblivion type sentences and was the sort of evangelist of this new age of television. Very, very prophetic. And it feels that, Donald Trump is someone who speaks in monologues. Many of us actually speak in monologues. I noticed no one's talking to me now. I'm just speaking in a monologue.
It does sort of feel like the first sort of cyberpunk, the whole cyberpunk movement in the 90s. It feels like this was the beginning of that. It feels very strange.
You should check it out. If you've not seen it, check it out. And the rallying cry of the film is, long live the new flesh. And James Woods puts this video cassette into his video vagina, and he enters the TV, and he becomes a sort of televisual video sapiens, if you will.
Okay.
Video sapien.
We have to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our top 10 countdown of the scariest, most horrifying Halloween movies of all time. Tom?
I want to jump up with the trivia question. Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters, very famous, right? Who sued Ray Parker Jr. over the rights to Ghostbusters?
This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM, and we'll have the answer for you right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fender Bailey with Tom Campbell and James St. James, who's humming the Ghostbusters theme.
to figure it out.
I am not recognizing that, James, I have to say.
Dare you?
It sounds like you're trying to do it like and not get sued for the rights yourself. Like, it sort of sounds like Ghostbusters.
I was trying my damnedest to be pitch perfect.
Well, before the break, the question was, who sued Ray Parker Jr. over the Ghostbusters theme?
Sued and won.
Oh.
Because it was based on his song. Ray Parker Jr. may have done it inadvertently, but it was Huey Lewis.
Oh.
I want a new drug.
Really?
Has the same riff
Ghostbusters!
as Ghostbusters.
I want a new drug. No.
Has the same bass line, the same rhythm.
Maybe. Okay.
It's a fact.
Huey heard it, and that's all that matters.
So did the judge.
Getting back to our countdown of horrifying, terrifying Halloween movies, what's at number 4, Tom?
Number 4.
John Carpenter's Halloween, the original, which I rewatched.
When? How? I can't.
I had to watch it again. I remember I watched it as a kid. Like we said, a lot of these things is when you're in those formative years and things are really scary. You know, it was made for $300,000. It grossed something like 70 million worldwide, which is like 267 million by today's standards. And it does have this really kind of brilliant but student film feel to it. You know, it's done on a budget, and it's Jamie Lee Curtis, now a famous scream queen, but that whole expression I think came out of that movie because she screams so great at the end, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And you know, it sort of is, it was supposedly being an homage to Hitchcock. It's very suspense. You jump out of your skin because somebody tapped somebody on the shoulder. You're like, oh! But it's the classic story of a young boy dressed as a clown on Halloween who murders his sister with a knife because she's making out with a guy, have sex, die on Halloween, and he gets locked up forever. You see that flashback, and then some weird doctor and a nurse in a 1970s station wagon are driving up to the insane asylum to find him for some reason, and all the crazy people are out in the street walking around in the pouring rain, and Michael has escaped, and the doctor knows just where he's going, back to that hometown, Michael Myers, back to the, you know, and it's Halloween. It's Jamie Lee Curtis's babysitting.
Hatfield was the name of the city, wasn't it?
Yes, you're so good.
Oh, yeah.
But Jamie Lee Curtis is a babysitter. It was so like exactly what my life was like, you know, in 1978. Like she was babysitting some kids, and friends of hers were getting drunk and girlfriends, and they were coming by the house to have sex. And this whole time, Michael's watching them and stalking them.
The scene where she sees him step out from behind the bushes and then step back in when she goes, oh, that nothing has ever been scarier than that ever in the history of movies.
Yes, and there was something about just looking out, because it's shot in Pasadena and a little bit in West Hollywood, but it was just like white clapboard houses, you know, and porches.
My neighborhood.
Yes, it looked just like my neighborhood.
Just like my neighborhood, yes.
And there's some scenes where he's just like, you're looking across the street and he's just standing looking in someone's window. So innocuous, but so incredibly
And
creepy.
the whole movie, there's like a whole 2-hour build up before the 15-minute slasher scene comes. And the whole movie is just that terror of waiting for the
you know he's watching. Is he coming now?
It's about to happen.
Is he
It's
coming
about to
now?
happen.
No. Is he coming now? No. And people are having sex, and there's some bad acting, and Jamie Lee Curtis, you're like, she's okay, and then it kicks in because finally he's done a lot of damage, but no one's figured it out yet. And everyone, you know, it's all that horror thing, like, oh, what am I thinking? It's just in my imagination. And they keep going. She comes up the stairs of the house where she's babysitting, and this hot guy and girl were having sex, and she comes up, and the girl's dead, lying on the bed with the tombstone of his sister.
But remember when they were having sex, Michael Myers came and was dressed as the ghost, remember?
Yes.
With the sheet on, and she
Yes.
thought it was the boyfriend. Oh, I'm so
He
scared.
does go around. And you don't really ever see him. You see a mask. You see him from behind. You always see his point of view. A lot of stuff in the foreground, which is creepy. And then, so Jamie Lee Curtis sees the girl in the bed, and she's freaking out. And then she leans into a closet, and then the guy comes swinging down because Michael Myers also has the ability, clearly, to like stage bodies in closets so that they fall around. And then she gets backed into a closet.
The closet where all of a sudden he's swinging the knife. She's in the she's in the
just-
closet,
yes.
and he's trying to stab her in the
Yes.
closet. Oh my
And
god!
she does what I would have done. She undoes a wire hanger, so because he's wearing a mask, like a with the little eye holes, and she gets him in the eye. She gets in the eye, and it's I don't know if it's the first
classic scene coming up.
Yes, because he's dead on the floor, and she's still babysitting. So she's like, kids, go across the street, go across the street.
I'm just going to stand here for a few minutes.
Yes, get away from the body. And she's just lying, and he's in the background dead, and she's got, and then all of a sudden he like sits up.
But you see her. The camera is framed so that you see her clearly, and you see
Yes.
him fuzzy in the background, and all of a sudden he's reclined, and then the body goes straight up.
Yes.
Yes.
And so she has to keep killing him. The doctor shows up. They shoot him to death. He falls off the balcony. Everyone's finally safe. We look over the balcony. He's gone.
And the music starts again.
Yes. John Carpenter wrote that music.
I was going to say the music. It's like Tubular Bells. It's like this classic creepy sound, right? It sets the mood, that theme. It's so unusual that the director of the movie wrote the music too.
Yes.
My first experience with a boy was the night before I saw the movie, and the next day he had spent the night, and we went to go watch Halloween together, and sitting together, terrified, and our knees were touching, and then we were sort of holding hands in the theater, and it was very transgressive because like we didn't want anybody from school seeing us, blah blah blah. So, but to this day, when I hear that music, I get aroused.
Oh, that's scary.
Because it's like horror and lust, like commingling within me whenever the flashback of the movie.
I remember seeing it with my friend Steven Stan, who I did not make out with in high school, and being so afraid and coming home, and it was dark, and I ran up to tell my parents, and they had fallen asleep with the television on, lying outside their covers, and so there was this flickering light over what appeared to be their dead bodies.
And to this day, like I am terrified. I am terrified of that movie, and I'm terrified of people, of closets. I'm terrified of people under my bed. Like it really, really did a number on me.
Okay, Jane. So what have we got at number 3?
Number 3.
Well, it's interesting that you chose Halloween because my number 3 is Black Christmas, which is otherwise known as Silent Night, Evil Night, or Stranger in the House. And it was the prototype for slasher films. It was 1974, and it was one of the first that were to come out. In fact, John Carpenter says that he got one of his main inspirations was from this movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It has a fantastic cast. It's directed by Bob Clark, which is my father's name, who found fame later on for the Porky's movies. Okay, but the cast is Olivia Hussey, who was in Romeo and Juliet, the Zeffirelli version.
Yes.
It's Keir Dullea, who was in 2001 Space Odyssey. It's Margot Kidder in her first role. It's John Saxon, who is just a hot daddy.
Yeah.
And then it's Andrea Martin from SCTV.
Shut up.
Okay, so it's got this really weird cast of everybody sort of starting out on their own. It's also the first movie that sort of introduces a killer who has no backstory, no context. He's just this sort of avatar of pure evil, okay? And you just see him in the very beginning of the movie through his point of view. This he's crawling. There's a sorority house, and it's at Christmas time, so a lot of the girls are gone, but the girls that are there are having a Christmas party, and you sort of see that in the background. But this man crawls into the window, into the house, and makes his way up to the attic, okay? And he moves into the attic upstairs. And he starts terrorizing the girls by calling them, by giving them filthy phone calls. It's so terrifying. I know I've said that it traumatized me, it did a number. This really changed my life. And this is also, by the way, one of the first movies with the call is coming from inside the house. You've got to leave. Scream, the babysitter.
When a stranger calls.
And he's calling and he's not making a lick of sense. And he's like, Mommy, don't hit baby. Mommy, no, I'm going to grab you by the pussy. I'm going to kill all of you. Mommy, stop it, Daddy. Like, just like not making any sense. And it was just terrifying. And as the movie goes on, it's the
I just had a shudder.
Like women are, some of the sorority girls are like wandering into this dark room. Just what was that thumping? And of course they get killed and murdered, and of course typical slasher film, blah, blah, blah. One of the interesting things is after it was released theatrically, it was going to be on an ABC movie of the week around Halloween. And the week before it was scheduled to happen is when there was Ted Bundy murdered all the girls in Florida State University. And it was sort of echoed it. And the governor of Florida called the president of NBC, or I guess it was NBC, and asked him to please not show the movie because it would traumatize the nation. And so they did not end up showing the movie. A couple other interesting little facts is that the man who was making those spooky phone calls that made absolutely no sense but were so terrifying, when he was making them in the recording studio, he stood on his head so that he sounded more demented and more strangled and out of breath and everything. So that's sort of weird. And the composer of the movie and the music in it is so creepy and terrifying. He made the music by tying knives, forks, and combs to the strings of a piano to give it sort of a wonky, disjointed sound. And then he slowed the audio tape down. So the music is really unlike anything you've ever heard before. And just the phone calls that the guy makes and Margot Kidder and everybody. It's if you've never seen it, it really still to this day will terrify the crap out of you.
Black Christmas.
Or Silent Night, Evil Night, or Stranger in the House.
Did they make any sequels?
They did. They made one in 2006, I believe, and
It was a remake.
it was a remake. Andrea Martin was the only person to star in it, as she was like that den mother or something at this point, and Bob Clark was the executive producer. It didn't do very well. It was sort of a bomb.
It had pretty big names: Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michelle Trachtenberg, Katie Cassidy, Lacey Chabet, and Oliver Hudson, Kate's brother.
Oh, Oliver Hudson, so handsome, and Katie Cassidy from Arrow, was David Cassidy's daughter.
Oh my gosh.
And Michelle Trachtenberg, who was Dawn on, or no, she was 90210. No, she was on Dawn on Buffy, and then she was in Gossip Girl too.
But you'd think they could make like Black New Year's Eve or Black Halloween or Black
in fact,
Midsummer's Eve.
It was the first, to
Black
do
Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
You get the idea.
But it was the first to do like a Black Christmas, so it was Christmas, and then Halloween was Halloween, and then there was Arbor Day, horror films, and so there you go, Black Christmas.
Okay, well, my pick for number 2. It's funny actually. We haven't had. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't had any zombie films.
No.
And the zombie surely is the tentpole of the horror film. So anyway, I picked
Number 2.
Dawn of the Living Dead from 1978. This terrified the crap out of me.
Now this
when
is
I
the
saw
sequel
it.
to Dawn of the Living Dead.
No, this is Dawn of the Living Dead, which is the sequel to Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So Night of the Living Dead came out in 1968, black and white movie. Really is one of the first movies to feature zombies as we understand them. Because zombies have been around since like 1819, but they're always in hidey and they're not completely dead. They're sort of drugged up, servile slaves.
voodoo-y stuff.
They're not flesh-eating, what's the word? Unstoppables,
undead.
Because they're like the modern zombie is a sort of malevolent creature that wants to eat you. Right, basically. And
Brains!
Thank you. Very nice. Yes. So but it's interesting because Dawn of the Living Dead by George Romero, who did Night of the Living Dead, technically it's a sequel, but none of the characters or situations are the same. So, but it's in that tradition, and basically the story revolves around a TV station where they're reporting on a zombie outbreak. I've always found personally the zombie outbreak to be the most compelling and scaring. Just the idea that suddenly people are just biting other people. It's always the beginning of the zombie epidemic that just, I don't know what is it about it that is so gripping.
Well, it's like in The Walking Dead where the guy goes into the hospital and he has a concussion, and when he wakes up, the whole world has changed and he has no idea why. And that's sort of like the whole premise of the show is nobody knows why it happens.
Nobody
and it's
knows why.
That unknown. And again, with both Night of the Living Dead and this one, Dawn of the Dead, you never really know why they're zombies, do you?
No, you don't. In George Romero's case, it's sort of modern life and its sicknesses are to blame. It's a sort of malaise of modernity. I mean, the slogan for the poster is fantastic. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. I mean, that's fantastic.
Good.
That's as good as In Space, No One Can Hear You Scream. And anyway, they flee the TV station when it's overrun by zombies, and they take refuge. And this is what makes the film so brilliant. They take refuge in a shopping mall. It happens to be the Monroeville Mall in Pennsylvania, but they hole up in a shopping mall.
And what is this a metaphor for?
Well, exactly. There is this sort of interlude when the zombies are all coming, but they've created a perfect fortress, and they live a life of luxury in the mall. And of course, obviously, a zombie, what is a zombie other than a stupefied shopper stumbling around a mall buying things? So there's this sort of parallel between the life they're leading inside the mall and the zombies outside. Really, shoppers and zombies, they're sort of one and the same thing.
If you've ever been at Walmart at Christmas or Target, yeah.
Exactly. So needless to say, in short order, their brief utopian interlude is destroyed by infighting. And so the zombies break in and the characters variously get killed, eaten, disemboweled, and flee to face an uncertain future. But it's absolutely, well, my favorite part of the film, actually, is they're in this mall, and this is something that happens in real life, but at 7 a.m., all the lights and automated music come on. So after the zombie apocalypse, when there's no one left, except these few survivors in this mall, 7 a.m., blinky, 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 blonk, and the fountain comes to life, and the lights come on, and the window displays. The music. And it's so creepy. It isn't, to me, it's never the horror and the entrails and all that. I don't really like that. But this empty mall springing to automated life, it's just very creepy, and it has just stuck with me. The other interesting thing, of course, it wasn't early zombies. Only recently have zombies acquired the ability to run and be fast-moving zombies. Because originally the zombies kind of moved.
And that was always sort of the argument about why they aren't scary is because you can always outrun a zombie.
Yes, but it's just their sheer volume of mass,
and
right?
the unrelenting, that they just don't stop. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, like 28 Days Later is when they were suddenly all fast zombies, or 28 Days.
Exactly right. Except purists will tell you they aren't zombies. They have been infected with a disease, but they're not actually the living dead.
Well, it's just another iteration of the zombies, from the voodoo to the undead to the radiation infected.
Well, in 28 Days Later, they're infected with rage, aren't they? It's an animal testing thing that goes amok, and animal activists, sort of misguided PETA-type people, have broken into a lab to free the animals, and they get bitten by the animals. They get infected with the rage virus, which is, I could just stand up right now and bite you. I'm so angry. But instead, let's take a commercial break. Hey, we've got one more question for you guys.
Oh, wait, I have a trivia question this time.
Okay.
What well-known gossip columnist was actually one of the zombies in Dawn of the Dead?
We'll have the answer for you right after the break. This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey here with Tom Campbell and James St. James and Blake.
Hi.
Hey, before the break, James St. James asked us what famous gossip columnist played one of the zombies in Dawn of the Living Dead.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to think out loud while you double check your source.
I don't think it was Liz Smith.
It's Rona Barrett or Rex Reed, and I want to lead toward Rex Reed.
I'm going to say Heloise.
James, I'm just thinking of the gossip columnist with whom you're great friends. It can only be Michael Musto.
It is Michael Musto, yes, I think.
We're just going to check his IMDb page.
I remember that Michael Musto and Steven Sabin were both wrote columns about being extras in the movie and being zombies. So I'm going to go out on limbs there and say that Michael Musto and Steven Sabin, both New York nightlife columnists, were in the movie. and I'm gonna double down on that.
Well, that's good because we're living in a post-factual world, so it's okay.
And if I say it, it makes it true.
So we've been counting down the top 10 Halloween horror movies that make us go, boo! And
Number 1.
we feel there's so many movies that we've really left out, so we should give a few honorable mentions.
Like a speed round here.
Yeah, and I'm going to kick it off with Open Water. I mean, I have to tell you that I believe the scariest movie is the one you've never seen. And this is a movie I could never see. It tells the true story of a scuba diving couple who come up from a beautiful scuba diving trip somewhere off Australia, and the boat has gone. And I got to tell you, it doesn't have a happy ending.
I am going to throw into the ring The Omen, the original Omen with Lee Remick and Gregory Peck. I seem to be on a tear here on evil children, but they're so scary, or I relate to them. But and the scene, the iconic scene, there's so many. I love that he had like a birthmark and he pulled it back from his hair and it was 666, which when I lost my hair, I was afraid that was going to be shown, but I'm okay. But it's that scene where Lee Remick, who is at the height of her 70s beauty, she's in cream, like a cowl neck top and cream pants, and she's in their beautiful home, and she's on a footstool, and she's rearranging like a plant or something. And little Damien and his trike knocks his mother over. And there's this great over the head shot of whatever, like the bowl she's holding crashes onto the floor, but she doesn't. And then you see that she's holding onto the railing for dear life, and little Damien comes over and removes her hands from the railing, and then beautifully Remick falls to her death.
Oh,
The Omen.
oh my God.
I'm going to go with Blair Witch Project because I
Yes.
remember I was at Sundance with you that year that it came out, and there was a sort of a rumor going around that this found footage was real, and that it had really happened, and people were terrified and would leave, were running out of the theater. And I personally had an experience when I was a child where I was lost in the woods with my brother and sister, and in my mind I was lost for like 3 days, and I remember my brother, as the sun was going down, saying that he was going to turn into a werewolf and kill us, and I remember just screaming and crying and trying so hard to find, and we eventually found the road and found our way back. But in my mind, I lived the Blair Witch Project, and I still have like PTSD when I watch it.
Did you have a flashlight to your chin the whole time?
No, it actually, like I said, it was probably about 15 minutes that we were lost. We had taken the wrong trail, but in my mind, I've built it up that it was the Blair Witch Project.
Do you remember I Spit on Your Grave?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was this whole thing in the UK in the early 80s. There was this whole thing called video nasties. It was at the time when everyone had a VCR and was watching movies on video. And the government intervened, created a list of 72 films that were called video nasties, because there was a fear that children and people were going to be corrupted by these awful, horrible,
like
hideous
Slenderman
films on videotape. And I Spit on Your Grave was one of them. Driller Killer, Faces of Death, Cannibal Feast. What was that blood one? The Herschel Gordon Lewis one. Blood Feast.
Oh, Blood Feast.
Of course.
Yeah,
Blood Feast. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of the scariest movie of all time, The Exorcist,
Oh.
which I've never seen, because my 4th grade catechism teacher told us that children were going to see The Omen and they were leaving possessed by the devil. So I don't follow all my Catholic faith, but I still listen to Mrs. Pouliot, and I have not seen The Exorcist.
The Exorcist is another one of those movies, sort of like Halloween, where it's like 2.5 hours of nothing happening, but you know that when it does happen, it's going to terrify the crap out of you. But you should see it now because it is sort of
Yes.
Richard Burton is in it, isn't he? And Linda Blair, and of course Ellen Burstyn is so amazing. It's really good.
If I watch it and come back next week possessed by the devil, James, I'm going to be so angry at you.
But there is one scene that you will absolutely love where Ellen Burstyn is a Washington sort of hostess, I think. She's a TV star, and she's having this really fabulous party, and her daughter comes downstairs in a little nightgown, and she's already possessed by the devil, and she just walks into this fabulous dinner party, and everybody turns and says, "What's going on?" And she just pees on the floor, and you just see this little dribble of pee coming out, and she just stares, smiling at everyone. They're like, something's wrong with little Linda. We must take her upstairs. Or something's wrong with little Reagan. We must take her upstairs. So, and that's what begins the terror.
Well, I have to throw mine in. I know y'all said you weren't going to talk about it, but this film scared the shit out of me. The Silence of the Lambs.
Oh.
It's just because it's so, like, it's not a boogeyman. It could, like, really B, and it's based on all these other true stories. It scared the shit out of me.
It's a scary one.
Also, It Follows from a few years ago was really good.
Just very quickly to sum up, we also have The Birds, Carrie, The Ring, 28 Days Later, Jaws, The Sixth Sense, Let the Right One In. I don't know.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Nordic Noir, 2008. Imagine, James, that your first crush is a teenage vampire.
Okay. We also have The Babadook from a few years ago, Scream with that great opening scene with Drew Barrymore, Suspiria, the Dario Argento, and I Spit on Your Grave, which we just spoke about.
We're out of time. So these are all our number ones because every scary film is a I can't even finish that sentence.
It's frightening anew.
Yes. We're out of time.
Yeah,
mercifully, this terror comes to an end. We're out of time. So we want to wish you all a very happy Halloween. Thanks for tuning into the Wow Report on Radio Andy for Sirius XM. And until next time, go out and do something that makes the world go...